Coming up on this Monday edition of Daybreak, adding to concerns over Seoul's air defenses, South Korea's military says it has found a third drone suspected to have flown from North Korea. There are growing concerns Korea's chronic individual, corporate and government debt woes are dragging on Asia's fourth largest economy. Plus, pro-Russian protesters stormed government buildings in 3 eastern Ukrainian cities, calling for a referendum on independence. Daybreak begins now. Hello and thanks for joining us. To our viewers here in Korea and around the world, it's 6 a.m. on Monday, April 7th here in Seoul. I'm Mark Broom and you're tuned in to Daybreak. Our top story this morning, the South Korean military on Sunday discovered yet another small drone, presumably from North Korea, on a mountain in Samcheok, Gangwon province, some 130 kilometers south of the inter-Korean border. This is the third such discovery in as many weeks, and all 3 drones are identical, sky blue and triangle shaped. Preliminary analysis shows the computer components inside the drone contain chips and microprocessors released back in the early 1990s, but have long since become obsolete. Seoul's Joint Chiefs of Staff says it will take strong actions against Pyongyang's violation of its airspace and will also mobilize units across the country to search for other drones. The South Korean military is considering purchasing advanced low-altitude surveillance radar systems and anti-aircraft guns to better detect small aircraft and shoot them down. And while we're talking about North Korea, a North Korea expert suggests Pyongyang might try detonating multiple bombs simultaneously when it carries out its next nuclear test. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports.
North Korea expert Jeffrey Lewis said Saturday on the website 38 North that the main question about Pyongyang's threat to conduct a fourth nuclear test is not what, but how the test will be carried out. He highlighted North Korea's response to the UN Security Council's condemnation of its ballistic missile launches last week, when Pyongyang said it will bolster its nuclear deterrence with a new kind of nuclear test. Lewis said he believes the test will be conducted with simultaneous detonation of other nuclear devices. He pointed out that Russia and the U.S. have conducted simultaneous detonations of up to 5 nuclear bombs, and compared the North's current situation to that of Soviet Union. Like the Soviet Union, Pyongyang lacks nuclear facilities, suffers financial issues, and has to deal with unpredictable weather. He also pointed to the possibility of vertical tunnel testing. The current site at Punggye-ri has horizontal tunnels in the mountains near the site, but the size of the bombs Pyongyang can test is limited by the size of the mountains and the resulting overburden. And he said the test site could only accommodate a few tens of kilotons. He pointed out that larger tests would need to be done in tunnels drilled much deeper into the ground. He also suggested that atmospheric and thermonuclear tests are a possibility. Atmospheric nuclear tests are prohibited under the limited test ban and the comprehensive nuclear test ban treaties, but North Korea has neglected to sign both. Lewis says Pyongyang is unlikely to conduct an atmospheric test, as it would anger the Chinese public. North Korea has conducted 3 nuclear tests so far, in 2006, 2009, and February of 2013. Kim Hyun-bin, Arirang News.
The South Korean Coast Guard again searched in vain Sunday for the missing 11 North Korean crew of a sunken Mongolian freighter that sunk some 30 kilometers off the southern port city of Yeosu, South Jeolla province, last Friday. 3 of the crew that survived and the bodies of 2 who were pulled from the sea were returned to North Korea through the Panmunjom Truce village on Sunday. The wreckage of the ship has been found, but the authorities believe the missing sailors are likely to have died and that the chances of locating them are getting smaller. Officials say the condition of the 3 survivors were in at the time of their rescue is adding to the view that the missing crew members are almost certainly dead. U.S. Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel has announced plans to deploy 2 additional Aegis destroyers to Japan by 2017. Hagel, who is currently in Japan, met with his Japanese counterpart Itsunori Onodera on Sunday and said the deployment is in response to Pyongyang's pattern of provocative and destabilizing actions, including recent missile launches in violation of UN Security Council resolutions. Last year, the US decided to deploy a second missile tracking radar system in Japan and additional interceptor systems in Alaska to counter the North's ballistic missiles. The US has around 30 Aegis-class ships, and experts say the deployments are also part of the US rebalance to the Asia-Pacific region. Now, Japan may cross the Rubicon and put Korea-Japan relations beyond repair if it goes ahead with a recently announced plan. Japan state broadcaster NHK said on Sunday that Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe will speak about the importance of Japan's right to collective self-defense and expanding the role of the military in an upcoming speech, an action that could sour relations with neighboring countries such as Korea and China. He will deliver the speech at the annual Asia Security Summit in Singapore in May. The summit will be attended by defense ministers and military representatives from Asia-Pacific countries. Japan has been criticized by its regional neighbors for beefing up its military and trying to revise its pacifist constitution.
We start before the sun rises to bring you the latest stories out of Korea. We also lead the way with important global coverage. Stay on the pulse of what is happening with Daybreak.
Now, Korea's debt problem is hurting Korea's economic growth and acting as the main bugbear for policymakers. And the ballooning debt held by individuals, companies and the government is showing no signs of decreasing. Our Ji Myung-gil has this report.
Korea is struggling under the weight of the debt held by individuals, companies, and the government, and experts are beginning to worry that the mounting debt will continue to be a drag on Asia's 4th largest economy. Hyundai Research Institute says Sunday the amount of household debt held by private entrepreneurs last year reached an average of $95,000, 2 times that of the average office worker. Indebted entrepreneurs also had to pay an average annual interest rate of some $5,000, also 2 times that of office workers. Experts say there is a need for new measures targeted at lessening the entrepreneurs' debt as they are affected by domestic business conditions. The size of the bank loans people are taking out to rent apartments has also increased over the past 3 months. Korea's land ministry says that since January, renters have borrowed some $27 billion in loans for rental contracts from local banks. That's an increase of 5.7% through the end of March, compared to roughly 3% during the same period last year. The Korean government is also having debt troubles. According to the Bank of Korea, the government is paying $57 billion in interest for public sector debt, a 28% increase from 5 years ago. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
The number of Koreans using so-called budget phones now account for 5% of all mobile phone users here in Korea. The Ministry of Science, ICT and Future Planning says that as of last month, over 2.8 million people were signed up on more economical phone plans that are around 30% cheaper than those sold by major mobile carriers. Ministry officials say the number of subscribers could surpass 3 million this month. Budget phones operators are much more cheaper because they borrow the network infrastructure from owners like SK Telecom or KT to lessen the burden of high cell phone bills. Now, Korean students have been ranked among the very best in the world at computer-based problem solving. In fact, students from East Asia were among the top performing groups in general. Our Connie Kim reports.
When it comes to creative problem solving, young Koreans are top-notch. The OECD released the results of its 2012 Program for International Student Assessment, or PISA, which surveyed about 85,000 15-year-olds from 44 countries, including member nations of the OECD. Korean students scored an average of 561 points on the computer-based problem-solving section. That's just 1 point behind Singapore, putting the island nation and Korea second in the assessment, and well above the OECD average of 500 points. Asian countries dominated the rankings. Japan came in third place, followed by Macau and Hong Kong, respectively. Considering the margin of error, the results are referred to in scopes such as second, when there is no significant difference in the scores. It was PISA's first assessment of creative problem-solving skills in students in terms of confronting problems that are encountered in everyday life. It looks at whether they have acquired the key knowledge and skills needed for full participation in modern society. The percentage of Korean students that scored a rank of level 5 or above out of a scale of 6 stood at over 27%. That led the OECD countries by a large margin. As for gender, male students scored 13 points higher than their female counterparts. The Korea Institute for Curriculum and Evaluation said that the findings reaffirm the strong competitiveness of Korean students against their overseas peers when it comes to creative problem solving. Connie Kim, Arirang News.
Local researchers have developed new drug treatments that can both diagnose and cure certain types of cancer. This targeted therapeutic technology is expected to open up new doors in developing medicine for other diseases. Our Son Jung-in has more.
Cancer is no longer considered an untreatable disease, but treating it usually comes with a variety of grisly side effects. But local researchers may have come up with a solution. They've developed a treatment that selectively targets cancerous cells without harming healthy cells and therefore reducing side effects.
By adding molecular imaging functions, the anti-cancer drug is selectively activated when it reaches targeted cancer cells, maximizing its effectiveness.
When the prodrug is inserted into a mouse with cancer, it does not disintegrate until it reaches the targeted cancer cells. When used for diagnosis, the drug makes the cancer cells turn a fluorescent color, enabling doctors to more easily identify the illness. The researchers were able to verify that the anti-cancer agents successfully targeted the malignant cells through a high-resolution cell image analyzing device. Later, they confirmed that the prodrug effectively treated the disease as the size of the cells noticeably reduced.
We can apply this new promising technology for early detection and treatment of other types of cancer while minimizing side effects.
The researchers believe the development can further enhance their research on customized cures. The results were featured in the online edition of leading chemistry journal Angewandte Chemie. Son Jung-in, Arirang News.
South Korea's spy agency has, for the first time, opened its interrogation center for North Korean defectors to the media. The National Intelligence Service wants to make the process more transparent amid claims some defectors are sometimes mistreated. Our Kim Min-ji reports.
Over 10,000 North Korean defectors have passed through the gates of this interrogation center run by the National Intelligence Service since it opened in December 2008. Recently revealed to the media, the center is where defectors first enter before starting new lives in the South. They first go through an inquiry process to check whether or not they are trying to pass themselves off as defectors. The process lasts for an average of 5 days, and an examiner conducts one-on-one talks with the defector whose every move is observed. During this period, defectors stay in a room equipped with a bed and washroom and are required to eat here, and they are not allowed to come into contact with other defectors. If the examiner finds nothing suspicious, the defector is sent to Hanawon, or the Settlement Support Center for North Korean refugees.
너무나도 조건이 괜찮습니다.
여기서 나가기 싫을 정도 돼요.
나가면 아무 간지랍니다.
When the inquiry process lasts longer than expected, defectors are given a single room where they can be kept for up to 6 months. If they act suspiciously, they are handed over to the investigation department. Although such a procedure is necessary, problems have arisen in the past. There have been allegations of inhumane treatment, including threats or cajoling, and it's hard to identify whether the management is transparent and fair. Moreover, the process is not recorded. As it's an inquiry, not an investigation, defectors do not sign a statement, nor can they check the statement on a computer.
말씀하신 걸 이제 컴퓨터 친 다음에 뽑아서 종이로 뽑아가지고 보여주고 자 확인하십시오 이렇게 하는 게 있나요?
제가 수사받는 과정에 그런 건 없었습니다.
During the inquiry, defectors are not allowed to speak to a lawyer. Some legal experts say the spy agency should not be in charge of both the procedure and management, adding that the Unification Ministry, which handles inter-Korean affairs, should monitor the management procedure so the process is more transparent. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
Now for a look at our international headlines, we're going to connect live to our Eunice Kim, who's standing by at the news center. Good morning, Eunice.
And good morning to you, Mark. Acting Ukrainian President Oleksandr Turchinov has called an emergency security meeting after pro-Russian protesters stormed government buildings in a trio of eastern Ukrainian cities. Protesters in Donetsk, Luhansk, and Kharkiv called for a referendum and claimed their city as belonging to Russia, clashing with police. Ukrainian media reported protesters pelted a government building with eggs and a firebomb in Luhansk. Interim President Turchinov was to head to Lithuania, but canceled a diplomatic trip to deal with the unrest. Ukraine's Interior Minister Arsen Avakov said the separatist disorder was ordered and paid for by Russia and ousted President Viktor Yanukovych in a Facebook post. Recovery teams will effort to verify ping signals that could have come from the black box of the missing Malaysia Airlines Flight 370 when they resumed their search efforts in the southern Indian Ocean this morning. Australian authorities said Sunday a Chinese patrol vessel had picked up electronic pulse signals on two separate occasions Saturday within a span of hours and 2 kilometers. China also said it spotted white objects in water some 90 kilometers away. Australia's HMS Shield is also investigating a possible third ping elsewhere in the massive search zone. The race to locate the missing airliner is intensified as the batteries of the black box are feared to run out any day now. Flight 370 went missing 30 days ago. Voter turnout for Afghanistan's historic presidential election on Saturday was much larger than expected. The country's election commission chief said around 58% of the 12 million eligible voters went to the polls, or that's double the turnout for the last election 5 years ago. This despite earlier threats by the Taliban to stage attacks to deter voters in the country's first ever democratic transfer of power. Taliban forces detonated dozens of minor roadside bombs and attacked polling stations on voting day. Over 350,000 government security forces were dispatched to polling stations, and rings of checkpoints and roadblocks were also set up. A third round of high-level nuclear talks will be held in Vienna Tuesday and Wednesday this week. On Saturday, Iranian negotiator Hamid Bahidinejad said last week's expert-level nuclear talks to limit Iran's controversial uranium enrichment activities in return for a lifting of economic sanctions were substantive and useful, as all major technical issues and sticky points were addressed in the way of a final settlement. Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif and European Union Foreign Policy Chief Catherine Ashton will meet this week with the goal of reaching a comprehensive agreement by late July. To ensure stability in its agricultural sector, China is not leaving things to Mother Nature. The Chinese government is planning to employ upgraded weather control systems in Heilongjiang, Jilin, and Liaoning, the three provinces responsible for 54% of the nation's rice production. The project, which will continue until June, involves creating artificial rain using cloud seeding, special aircraft, rockets, and much more. China has been tinkering with the idea for years, but now how controllable can the weather be? Skeptics fear the consequences of meddling with nature at this level could be dire.
And a good Monday morning to you all, and what a great weekend for South Korea's Son Yeon-jae went into the Lisbon World Cup, hoping to win her first individual all-around medal. And of course, like I said, hoping to win her first individual gold here. She got her wish as she scored 17.550 in clubs, 17.950 in ribbon, 17.900 in hoops, and 17.800 in ball, for a total of 71.200, good for first in individual all-around, winning her first ever gold medal in the individual all-around finals. Not only that, on the second day, she wins the gold medal in ball, clubs, and ribbon event, while she earned a bronze in hoop, finishing off with 4 gold medals in total in Lisbon. And moving over to some Sunday's KBO action as the Tucson Bears beat the Kia Tigers 4-1, with the SK Wyverns beating the Hanwha Eagles 8-1 and the Samsung Lions crushing the Lotte Giants 7-1. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the red-hot NC Dinos take on the Nexon Heroes. Of course, going into the game here, first inning, Lee Tae-gun at bat, and he drills this pitch to deep left field. There he goes, gone. A solo shot puts Nexon up 1-0. Going to the bottom of the inning with one man on, Lee Ho-jun, and over the left field wall, and NC's up 2-1. Down 2-1 in the 8th inning of the game, two-time MVP Park Byung-ho sends it to right, going, gone, tie ball game 2-2. Shifting over to the 9th inning here, Yoo Han-jun, he's going to ground this to third base here, but no play at the plate, and Nexon takes the lead 3-2. We go over to the bottom of the 9th inning, man on first and second, Lee Jong-wook drills this pitch to deep right center field. Lee Sang-ho scores. Here comes Choi Young-hoon, play at the plate, and it's safe. Ball game over. The NC Dinos winning in the bottom of the 9th inning, 4-3, your final score. And over to some Sunday's K-League Classic action. A lot of draws on this day, with Pohang and Jeonnam drawing 2-2 and Ulsan and Busan drawing 0-0. Meanwhile, let's take a look at the highlights between FC Seoul and the Jeonbuk Hyundai Motors. Now, it doesn't take long for the first goal to be scored here in the 3rd minute of the match after a penalty is called. Jeonbuk's Leonardo sends one past the goalkeeper, and Jeonbuk takes an early 1-0 lead. 27th minute, Jeonbuk still up 1-0. FC Seoul's Yoon In-nok gets past 3 defenders, and a brilliant goal here levels the match at 1 apiece. Now, both sides very aggressive in the second half of the match, but that's all the goals we'll see in this match, as this match ends in a draw as well, 1-1. And now moving over to Game 4 of the KBL Championship between the Changwon LG Sakers and the Ulsan Mobis Phoebus, with LG up 2-1 in the series. Now Mobis getting their offense running quick here as they take a 21-15 lead in the first quarter before heading into halftime with a comfortable 44-31 lead. Second half of the game, Mobis turns up their defense this time as Moon Tae-young puts up 20 points and 6 boards on the night, as Mobis ties the series at 2 apiece with a 71-60 win. And now finishing things off with NCAA basketball. Fans love the tournaments for the upsets. And now 2 schools who weren't seeded that high are going to the final dance. After a last-second 3 from Aaron Harrison of Kentucky, the Wildcats beat Wisconsin as they head into the finals. Meanwhile, another upset win here, this time by UConn, who beat the number 1 seeded Florida, as the NCAA men's basketball final is set as Kentucky and UConn will face off for the national championship. And that's going to wrap it up for me. This has been SJ. Have a great rest of the day, and see you guys again for your sports needs.
Over the weekend, I've got so many questions from others asking me when the temperatures will ease up again. Well, it was so cold and windy on the weekend, as if the winter is coming back again. Good news is the second week of April is looking great, with temperatures jumping back to upper teens in most areas. So it will feel more like spring today. Skies will stay clear in most parts of the country throughout the day, but dry weather watch has been issued in some regions, so please stay hydrated and apply a good amount of moisturizer to keep skin soft. Also, please notice that it's going to be a very windy day for parts of the east today. With that in mind, here are the readings for today. today. The morning low here in the capital Seoul starts out at 7, but afternoon high will rise to 17, while Daegu get up to 23, and Gwangju and Busan should top out at 19 and 20 respectively. Now for other regions, it looks like down at Jeju and Dokdo will peak to 17 and 19, and Mount Kumgang will see a high of 16 this afternoon. Well, that's all I have for you at this hour, and I hope you have a wonderful start to the new week.
Well, thank you very much, Jion, for the weather there. And those are the stories we have for you at this hour. Korea Today is coming up in about 30 minutes' time, and we'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Until then, goodbye.